coming up on Unchained Voices.
Some men cry with their fists. They're angry, they're crying, but they're not showing you they're crying, but they'll fight you and they'll punch, knock man down. They just need to get it out of their system.
One of the most consistent thing they found of those who had committed suicide was that they had no credit on their phone.
Phone credit in prison is expensive.
Let's say even if they can battle through the sort of the pride and shame of asking for help. I want to call someone, I can't because I've got no credit. And people are taking aim at the music, they're aiming at the wrong target. I've seen how the Met Police, how the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, will abuse that position of power and will use those lyrics in a way that misrepresents their origin.
Yes, it's your girl, Lady Unchained, and I have got an incredible guest here with me, a man like Ciaran. And just so you don't know, we do have a producer called Ciaran, so, you know, it's a different person, a special guest that, I don't know, like, I'm going to let you introduce yourself properly, but, like, I'm super gassed because people might not know that we've worked together in prisons, doing sessions with, like, the guys, getting them to write, think about their lyrics, and we're going to get into all of that, but, like, there's something that you wrote on Instagram, and I just really want to say, let's talk about that first, and then we can get into, like, who you are and why you're saying these things.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
So on Instagram, you wrote this was what you wrote on Instagram. You said, a little over 2 years ago, I walked out of delivering a prison workshop, climbed into my car and felt myself on the blink of a breakdown. So let's start there. What happened?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me, firstly.
You're most
It's a pleasure to be here chatting to you. What's interesting context for that is that was the same set of workshops that you and I worked on together as well. So it was a similar era in my life.
Yeah.
Just to rewind before that, I'd spent 9 years as a youth worker, continuously delivering youth programs, creative writing programs, school inclusion programs.
Yeah.
In schools, youth clubs, prisons. I've been sort of quite relentlessly doing that alongside the other half of my career, which was writing. So writing journalism, writing my book, often about the youth work I was doing and about the issues that young people that I was working with were facing. So that's just a bit of context for what then happened that summer, which was I kind of just hit this wall of I can't carry on trying to carry all of this. The heaviness of the youth work and the sort of facilitation in prisons, in schools, combined with the heaviness of me trying to sort of carry that in my writing the whole time. I think writing had always performed a really like an important function for me of allowing me to document things and like make sense of my experiences. But I think actually that summer I realised I needed a bit more support for myself. I think there's such an issue with youth workers not getting clinical supervision and looking after themselves first.
Yeah.
So that was the moment.
It can be heavy.
That was the moment that I got into my car and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I felt it wasn't just psychological. It was like, you know, my body telling me, like, you can't keep doing these workshops because you're kind of going in and out of these spaces where people deserve your full attention and you're the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
So what happened next is that I took the leap and invested in therapy. And I should say that the only reason I sort of did that was several months of talking to people, other people or years of talking to people that had benefited from making that step.
Yeah.
And I guess everyone gets to the point where they're like, I'm actually going to do this. Even if like financially it might hurt me for the next few months, like I've got to do it. So that's what happened next. And I guess, I'm here now a couple of years later, feeling much stronger for it.
Amazing.
But yeah.
Do you know what, like, touching on the therapy situation is crazy because I feel like we all need that. And it's so heavy doing the sessions as well because you want to be the best version of yourself for these people. Because you know that's either the one day that they're going to get to be creative or be able to even just have a conversation. And then you leave. And you leave with all of that. Like some people, I don't know, like some people it's cool, like you can shut things off and you can just continue the rest of your day. But you leave with all of those stories. Remember, we're getting people to write stuff. Like, we're getting people's stories that they've never even spoke to about that with a friend or mother or whatever. And myself, having the lived experience of actually being in jail as a prisoner, when I got out, I was being told to do therapy. And I remember feeling like, No. So now you want to label me as a criminal and I need therapy, so I'm a mad woman. You know, like, and you don't really understand that you need those things. But once I started doing therapy with the right therapist, you got to say the right therapist, because not all of them are great. You have to find the right one for you.
Yeah.
When I found that, like, I realized, oh, this was needed. Like, this was really, really needed. And I didn't realize just how much I needed that. But I want to go back into, like, obviously we've done sessions together. We've seen amazing pieces of writing. We've seen amazing talent. And you touched on the kind of like giving people your all, like, do you understand, in those sessions? And I feel like that is what we do. But like, let's go into like the reasons why you started doing those stuff. Because obviously you said youth work and stuff, and then you went into doing prison sessions as well. What was the hunger for you to like want to work with like young people talking about creativity, but also lyrics?
Sure. So I started as a youth worker just over a decade ago, which is mad now, kind of reflecting, it's a good timing for this conversation, thinking about that 10-year shift and everything I've sort of done in between then. And prior to that, I'd led a life of relative comfort. I grew up in a middle-class home. My dad's a doctor, my mum's a nurse. So I feel like I was very lucky to have grown up without too much disruption, really. My parents got divorced, that was disruption, and that actually happened that year. So I kind of left home, moved into South London and started my youth work journey. But I think that a lot of my family are people working in public services, psychiatrists, doctors, teachers. So it's kind of that got activated at that moment. And I started working as a mentor in schools. I started volunteering in my local youth club, which eventually turned into a regular paid job there.
Back in the days when we had youth clubs.
Yeah.
Back in the days.
Yeah.
Back in the days. Bring them back. Anyway.
Yeah, do bring them back. Yeah, might as well champion that whenever possible. So, there was a few things going on there. I suppose it was like in me already in terms of my family background and what I believed in. The reason I mentioned that I grew up relatively comfortable is because I think it's relevant here to say that I think those of us who have that stability in our lives I felt a responsibility to give back to society.
Not everyone feels like that, though.
No, agreed. But I think that the burden,
that.
I think that the argument of lived experience, supporting those with lived experience, I think is very strong.
Yeah.
But the burden cannot be just on those that have gone through it, right? It has
love that.
It has to be a collaboration.
I love that so much, because I've said this so many times. Why is it, especially when it comes to the prison system, why is it a lot of times that people like myself who have been to prison, who have been through that trauma, the heaviness of trying to rebuild your life after prison, why is it that we are the ones now kind of re-traumatizing ourselves and going back in to help those people? It shouldn't just be us. It should lie on all of us. Do you know what I mean? All of us should have a responsibility and duty of care for young people, for, people who are going through it, people who are going through the care system, people who just don't have it like the rest of the world. Do you know what I mean? So I really love that you said that. Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I agreed. Where lyrics come in is that my earliest memories on this planet are putting a vinyl down and dropping the needle with my dad. That was a very important space for me as a toddler. And it was feeling the bass of the subwoofer. And he was playing all types of music. But it planted something in me that deeply appreciated music and lyricism and beat making, eventually when I got into hip hop and garage and whatever. So music was always there, not just as a sort of activity that I did to listen to, but it was really ingrained in my identity. Yeah. I was obsessed, I kind of grew up in the crossover from garage to grime, so I got fanatical about that as a teenager. Because that was such a big part of me, and it wasn't just this other thing. It was I would study lyrics, I would read music journalism, I would really get into it. I'd read books that were referenced in Wu-Tang. It was it was a part of my academic journey. So by the time I became a youth worker, I'm there in South London, in Brixton, working with all these young people.
Yeah.
And that's when UK music starts to evolve. That's a threshold. That's UK rap starts taking off more. People like Dave start coming onto the scene. And drill starts becoming popular. So I kind of landed in this, it was just a matter of timing, of landing my most powerful language of speaking to the young people I was working with, despite not being from their community, was the fact that I could talk music.
Yeah.
So that was it from the first session.
Universal
it was
language.
Lyrics.
Yeah.
It was lyrics from the first session, and then that's how it kind of took off from there, and it never stopped.
So let's go into that, because like obviously you touched on drill, and drill artists. I respect you, man. I promise I'm not coming for you, but I sometimes feel like you feel I'm coming for you. I'm not coming for you at all. I swear I'm not. The reason I'm saying this is because I know there will be like, this girl don't really like us, she don't like us. Like, it's all right. I respect you, please don't cancel me. Me and you've done sessions in prisons, and we know that a lot of people in the prison system are into drill. Large up the free flow listeners, because I know you're obviously going to tune in. They're into drill, and obviously drill does sometimes come across very aggressive, like something is about to happen to you. And again, drill artists, like, you always catch me slipping, because I'll be just tuning into the track, and then you hear something, and you're like, oh, that's a bit deep, isn't it? Like, so going into lyrics, why do you feel like, because obviously when we've done our sessions, we get people to write, you then explain like lyrics and how they can be used against individuals. Why do you think it's important for us to talk about like these lyrics and what you are putting into your lyrics? Because I think a lot of the times I be talking to people and they're like, yeah, you're just trying to make man soft, like, there's censoring and that, like, you get it. But I'm not trying to censor you. I'm just trying to keep you free, bro. Trying to keep you free. So I want you to kind of explain that, because at the end of the day, like, I feel like we have the same conversation where we talk to people in prison, but I think the public needs to know why we're doing this. It's not that we're trying to protect people and say like hide or whatever, but the snitching on yourself is real when it comes to some music at this point. We know this, it's in the public eye, everyone's talking about it, but we have somebody here that is actually doing the work. So I want you to talk about that, because there could be a lot of young people that hopefully tune into this that haven't been to jail, but are actively talking about certain things in their lyrics. And I want them to understand why it is that we're talking about these kind of conversations, because, again, we're not trying to like make you, we're not trying to censor you, but I want them to understand why I think this conversation is important, especially when it comes to lyrics, criminal justice, and offending behaviour. Yeah,
sure. So if going back to that time of me starting to become a youth worker in 2015, and starting to see drill, like I'd hear it in the corridor in the schools I worked in, like it was like a different, and so I would start having conversations about this new music, and I'd start tapping in on YouTube, and so for the first few years, my contact with that genre was listening to it while simultaneously holding on a daily basis workshops with teenagers who were listening to it, and who weren't just listening to it but were living in parts of London that were directly impacted by the commentary of its lyrics. Their older brothers, their older cousins, people on their estate. So it was my point is that it was very lived. It wasn't like this abstract thing. It was very lived, and it was very real. So whenever I've written about drill and tried to like make sense of it, back then, but also all the way up till now, I've always come from this place of like balance. There isn't an easy answer. It's not a case of just either, we should just free up all the lyrics and let them say whatever they want. No, but it's also not a case of this thing needs shutting down and it's all their fault. It's somewhere in the middle, and we have to get that nuance from the get-go. So that's the first thing I'll say. Part of that, and part of getting that nuance, that balance, is that, on the one hand, I've seen, as an expert witness, I've worked on over 20 cases where they've used lyricism or social media content to try and convict someone, right? In the courtroom. So I've seen, I spent a few years doing that and seen quite a full extent of how that can be done. And, you and I have sat in rooms in prisons with young people who will be in there because of convictions that have involved evidence of their lyricism, right? So we also know the real implications of that, right? So on the one hand, it's like doing this work is important. Guiding young people to write lyricism in a safe way is good, because they need to understand that they could end up in this situation, and reflecting on that and thinking about that in the studio is important for their own freedom.
100%.
The second layer is that it's important for their own well-being, I think. And it might sound, I'm saying that wary of how that sounds, of like, I haven't been through what a lot of those who are making drill and drawn to drill have gone through. appreciate the fact that music can be a medium of expressing trauma, of trying to communicate with people, of also just trying to get likes and trying to get up, trying to get money.
Trying to get, trying to get that viral. As well. Yeah, serious.
So like I see all those benefits, and I think a lot of artists have done that really well. There's still an ethical line in the sand that people like you and I have to draw to be like, nah, we're not just going to accept you saying that.
No.
Tell me about that. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And I think that's important in any sense. I'm a writer, I'm an author, right? I don't just write and then release it. I have an editor. The editor says, this doesn't make sense. Can you make your opinion here is quite unbalanced?
Yeah,
can you justify
this? Clear.
Yeah. So I think just that like critical process it's not just about freedom and staying out of jail. It's also about actual well-being, development, having those restrictions. But on the other side, I think like pushing back against the tendency to censor it, and the fact that again, the other side of me doing that court work is that I've seen how the Met Police, how the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, will abuse that position of power and will use those lyrics in a way that misrepresents their origins. So it will take them literally.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a case of defending young people's freedoms, defending young people's well-beings, protecting music, because I love music, like I've said.
Yeah.
But it's also a case of like trying to challenge the injustice of too much censoring. So there you go. Somewhere in the middle, you got to find an answer.
Got to find an answer. I love that, and I feel like it's weird because I think even though people are aware of this, it's still something that people still don't really understand properly. If that makes sense. So people are like, yeah, but I said it, but it didn't mean that I actually done that. But then obviously, if we're talking about the courtroom, like for them, it's a conviction because guess what? You might have not been there at that particular time, but you might have had an involvement in regards to you sent these people there because you said that you done this and this and this and sent the man on the road, but you weren't there. So basically now you're being convicted as the boss because you're the...
Exactly.
You're the boss.
Exactly.
You sent all these men over there and you were sitting.
Yeah, and I think part of the dangerous thing here is that I've always said that when people are taking aim at the music, they're... aiming at the wrong target. The target needs to be at technology.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
The technology that we have allowed, the Pandora's box of social media technology that we've allowed everyone to have access to over the last 20 years is part of I think the main problem. I think music is culture. Yeah. Culture happens. Culture is, it's like you can't control the weather.
No, you can't.
Culture is the same. It happens out of human experience. So if we have technology available to us, we'll make music based on that technology, right? So I think that so much of this is about making technology more safe and social media more safe, and then the music will reflect that safety. Part of the thing that I think about when I've done some of these cases is how the real detail matters. So when so anyone listening here that writes lyrics that might verge into criminality or admitting criminality, right? I'll give you an example. High-profile drill artist of a case I've worked on. They were trying to say that his lyricism was admitting to and describing having done this crime, very serious crime.
Yeah.
And I was brought on to read these specific lyrics. They'd trawled through all of his lyrics and they'd picked out these 5. And these 5 described in quite a lot of detail the crime that he was being. Yeah. But the important difference that I had to point out was that he wasn't saying that he'd done it in these lyrics. He wasn't. If you look to the lyrics, it was just stating that it happened.
Yeah.
But they were trying to frame it like him stating that
he's saying that this is what I done.
Exactly.
Like.
So I'm like, look, you might have other evidence, fine. But you can't use these lyrics in a legit way. You're misrepresenting this. The way that news travels in communities now, right? It could have easily be someone he knew, or he could have copied someone. Lots of teenagers just copying people.
Yeah, we know, and this is the thing. Like,
exactly.
if you're, especially if you're a writer as well, like things that happen around you, you write about them. Like, it's not that you're talking about it like this is what I done A to Z. It's also because if we're thinking about creativity and writing as a whole, again, going back to the therapy, that's your therapy. That's you expressing yourself and actually telling yourself this happened. Sometimes you got to write things out, and if you are a rapper or a draw artist that you've seen something crazy, like, and you put it into a crazy bar, you're going to do it because guess what? that's going to get likes. That's going to get like, people are going to be like, yeah, I've experienced that. I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's not that he's talking about me, but guess what? I've been with my boy and that happened to him.
Yeah.
So this is how we use lyrics. But unfortunately, the fact that the courts can take those lyrics and try to kind of like allude to, well, actually in your lyric, you said da 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 da, and we are trying to charge you for this, is very similar to what we're trying to charge you for. This is why, for me, it's very important for my listeners and people that I do sessions with to understand that I'm not trying to make you soft or emotional or whatever. I'm just trying to make you think about what it is that you want to say and how you want to say it. Like, can we get some metaphors added up in this? Like, can we, can you do a form of storytelling where you are actually telling a story, but it's not your, do you know what I mean? It's like, there's ways that we can express these feelings of hurt, pain and trauma.
Definitely.
Without, I guess, firstly, snitching on ourselves or snitching on our friends. And secondly, and I'm not telling people don't, please, because police, you not might think I'm telling them not to tell the truth. It's okay. I speak the truth. But my thing is, I don't want them to be in a situation because they've experienced something so traumatic, and the only way they know how to express it and talk about it is through a piece of writing. But they won't ever sit down with their boy and say, yo, you know that situation that happened with my man, like, that hurt me, bro. Like, I can't sleep at night. I can't, like, I see man's face. Like, do you understand? Like, you won't get those kind of conversations. But in the lyrics, you'll hear the pain, you'll hear the emotions, and that's the only way that person knows how to express it. So for me, it's hard because it's like, I don't want to censor people. I don't want people to be like, oh, but she only plays me if I talk like this, or she only works with poets or whatever. I don't want you to feel like that. I work with everybody, like, music-wise. But my thing is, when it comes to drill or instrumentals, I'm always like, let's put a positive spin on it. I want to hear positive drill. Like, how do you want it? How can man, what? Like, and I'm like, but we can do it though. And more than anything, it happens. And it's, for me, it's then when they see and hear themselves actually spitting some positive bars that still bang, and they're like, actually, this is all right. And I'm like, you see, and you didn't snitch on yourself, not once. Do you get what I mean? So I feel like,
yeah, and also I think so. There's positivity, but then there's also just safe realness. Like, you can also not be positive and be actually not necessarily negative. You could be negative. You could also just melancholic, reflective about the horrible things you've been through,
exactly,
or things you've witnessed,
because not everything is positive,
while still being safe, like, and not trying to set out to provoke someone else. So I think it's great that you, and when I've tried to do it myself, people like us who are holding these spaces, someone has to hold that line. Even if the young people, whoever people go, leave that space and then go and do their own thing. I think making sure that they have those parameters somewhere is important.
No, I agree absolutely. The Unchained Voices podcast is funded by Bobab, and if you'd like to support us and our mission, just get in touch. Our email is info@unchained.org.uk. We would love to collaborate with you. Obviously, we're talking lyrics, we're talking about, like, criminal justice, we're talking about censoring, but obviously you have your own podcast, and I will not be here and not talk about that, and I want you to talk about that and why you set that up, because, again, I feel like I just meet some incredible people that's always just doing work, and sometimes I'm like, wow, if I didn't go to jail, like, would I know all these people? Which is like, it's a bit crazy, but also it's the fact that, like, I chose to go into this journey of my self-reflection myself, to get it, and in doing so, I get to meet incredible people like yourself. So talk to us about your podcast, please, because I want people to make sure that they're either tuning in or getting involved.
So I host a podcast called Safe. That's in my day job at the Youth Endowment Fund, which is a charity that funds, researches and promotes interventions for violence affecting young people. So it's all about preventing violence. It's conversations with people, adults who are working in violence prevention in some way. And maybe they are doing that in schools, maybe they're doing that in prisons, maybe they are CEO of a charity, maybe they have their own experience of violence and they've tried to turn that into youth work, whatever. So it's those types of conversations, and it's an extension of my job now, which is like more working in policy research, storytelling, which has kind of come out of my youth work journey.
And you're the director of that. That's your role as a director.
I'm director of external affairs and youth understanding. So I'm a director at the charity, which is a privilege. It's a position that I don't take lightly. It's like a it feels like it's challenging, but it feels like the most powerful way I can put my frontline experience into the higher heights of systemic change. The podcast is one version of this, which allows me to try and put on the map, because we've got a big audience of people that work in policy, in the civil service, like people who can genuinely make policy change and make decisions about funding, etc.
Yeah.
If I can make conversations like we're having now accessible to those people, I think that's real change. But similarly, I get to sort of oversee a lot of how we tell stories about violence, so that it's more about trying to solve it rather than just constantly talk about how violent everything is, which I think the media falls on all the time. It's part of the reason I wrote my book, Cut Short, trying to tell a story that can enter the public domain. That is, it grapples with the complexity, it grapples with death, it grapples with trauma, but it also moves us on to hope and solutions. I'm only ever interested in that combination.
Hope and solutions. Because it's easy to talk about something and just be like, yeah, it's very bad. Like, there's loads of violence happening. But what is the solution to this? Like, what is... like, it's funny because it's funny, I say, but it's not funny. But it's, we had this kind of like place where we went to meet some judges and we got to talk to them after. And one thing that I was bringing up was, and this is because now they've changed the law, but I said to the judge, like, do you think it's a bit harsh that you're sending little boys to prison who are carrying these knives, big swords that are taller than them, but we haven't made it illegal to buy these things online?
Yeah.
Do you understand? Like, I feel like I had this question because I'm like, you're saying this is terrible. There, we have a situation here. People are getting stabbed left, right, and center, but yet it is not illegal to buy these big machetes and swords off the internet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, of course, he had a very great response in regards to, like, obviously, he still doesn't know why that hasn't happened, which I was like, well, why? But the thing is, like, we have these laws in place to protect people, but a lot of the laws that are there are not protecting the young people that actually need them. Do you know what I mean? So for me, when I'm hearing about violence of young people and stuff, like, I don't want to say again that I'm promoting saying it's okay for them to be violent, because it's not. But I feel like it's something that we need to be talking about, and not just talking about it, understanding that we need to find some kind of resolution to this, because it's continuing to happen. It's not, it's not getting less. If anything, it's way harsher than anything. It's increased. People are getting, the kids that are getting sentenced for like knife crime are like as young as 13 doing serious sentences, and it's like, how are we balancing this when it comes to now that kid is gonna go to prison? They might not meet the right people in prison either, and just continue the aggression of anger because that's all they know. How do they get that help? So I want you to like kind of explain why you think it's important for us to actually really dig deep into these conversations, because I mean, I know why I feel like that, but why do you feel like these are conversations that need to be continuous, not just on the main screen? I'm talking about like in our own communities, in our own culture, like all of us as a whole, because we've got, you're working in South London. We know South London has got heavy crime rate, whatever. I feel like London in itself is a heavy crime rate anyway. But why is it important for us to be talking about these kind of conversations in our communities? Because at the end of the day, I mean, I feel like when I go into prisons, I feel like half of the kids that I see there look like they could be my children. Do you know what I mean? So in my head, I always see them as my kids, and I'm like, this is someone's child, regardless of why they're here. This is someone's child that needs to let out some of the traumatizing things that they've probably seen in the streets or in the household. Like, why do you think it's something that we need? Because I don't know, man. So for me, it becomes very like touchy, because I feel like I just want to help the whole of the world, but I just don't have enough money to do so, or enough voices to kind of help us like talk about this.
Yeah, big question. I mean, it's interesting that you just said when you just said that you go in and you feel a level of responsibility for a lot of these teenagers that you work with when you do these workshops.
Yeah.
I feel that too, on a level of like, we all live in this society together. There is increasing commentary, especially online, which is why I think the technology conversation is constantly important, about Britain being in this like crisis, which in many ways it is. But London being less safe than it's ever been, or Britain having more violence than it's ever been, those things aren't necessarily true. And I think it's important to challenge the sort of assumption that everything is just a complete disaster all the time, which is why the hope and solutions is important for me.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, there are lots of things going wrong. There's a lot of hurt and trauma, and that hasn't gone away. And in the 2010s, that increased, and it's still hovering at this general high. But over time, if you zoom right out, over the last 50 years, British society's got less violent. So when everyone's been like, back in my day...
Back in my
like
days.
everyone used to leave their front doors open, and
oh God, yeah.
you know, there's like this nostalgia for a Britain of the past that is
Yeah.
dominating online discourse at the moment. It's just it's not, if you actually look at how violent things are, things have got much better. In general, we've solved a lot of problems. We can keep solving it in the same way that we solve a lot of scientific problems, the same way that we make the air cleaner, and you know, violence is something that we can prevent, and that's something that I'm proud to work at the Youth Endowment Fund trying to like bring to life. But it's also something that I, in my youth work, you know, even everything I've explained so far, it was always, okay, let's have these really difficult conversations about what's happened. Someone's lost someone, someone's made a mistake and they've hurt someone, or they've got kicked out of school, or they've got sent to prison, or they've stolen something, or, you know, that let's grapple with that, but let's always try and move it on to what's next and where there's a solution. And I think it's like, it goes back to that responsibility I feel, you know, even I said at the beginning of this conversation, as someone that has been born into this society, I feel we've got to look out for each other. Yeah. That's been eroded. That philosophy in our society has been eroded. And I think unless some of us protect it, it's really important to do that. Unless some of us protect it, we're going to lose it. So that's why. But yeah, violence is also evolving as well. You know, we're sat right now in a country where domestic violence and violence against women and girls is, if there are types of violence that are on the rise, this is the side of things that is something that needs to be talked about more and more. Yeah. And what men are teaching boys, that's an example of something that I think it needs definitely like red alert magnifying right now. Yeah. In terms of other types of violence, like those of us that have experience in this space and have the knowledge and the information, this is where research can be really powerful, need to be having conversations about it like this, rather than just like making recommendations to policy and just saying this is what needs to happen on a piece of paper. I think conversation is really useful for sort of getting out the humanity of the whole complexity of the situation. Yeah. So that's why the conversations, I think, are helpful.
And I love that you touched on the women and girls, because that's something that I feel like, again, a lot of people kind of shy away from talking about. But also it's funny because I've had kind of sessions with like guys in jail, and we've spoken about like for like International Women's Day, and they've heard like stories from other women and stuff. And what has been actually incredible, which people might not want to hear this, but half of the guys that were in those sessions were literally just eye-opened. Like they were like, I never even thought about how it would feel if I'm like minding my business, walking home, and there's a woman in front of me that I haven't even noticed because I've got my headphones in and I'm just walking. But that woman's noticed me, and she's like petrified because of something that has happened before, or the fact that there's a man walking behind her, and the fact that these guys kind of thought, oh my God, I never even thought about it like that. Maybe next time I need to cross the road. You know, just those normal little things, conversations. Yeah, again, just a conversation.
Exactly, but that's not even just men in prison. You know, that's all of us men need a reminder constantly. Like I grew up in a household. I've got two younger sisters, so I grew up in a household with more women. I would expect myself to have been able to grapple with certain conversations and certain moments over the last few years better than I have been. Yeah. But I've been schooled in certain situations. When Sarah Everard, rest in peace, was murdered.
Yeah. Oof. And I'm really happy you said murdered, because murdered.
Yeah, by a police officer.
By a police officer, yeah.
In the months after it, whenever I used to drive through South London with my wife, she would be like, this is where Sarah Everard got murdered, like driving through. And I would pass it without even thinking about it. But what was going through her mind as we went over that crossroads, like, this is where it happened. Yeah. Every time I went over it, this is where it happened. And similarly, after that happened, I then started having conversations with her and having conversations with my sisters about how when they are about to approach their front door, they put a key between their hands, right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just didn't know that. And so I'm giving that as an example about how those conversations, and sadly it took that tragedy to prompt that.
Yeah.
But those types of like opening our eyes and being really aware of the insidious way that hypermasculinity and not challenging hypermasculinity can really seep into the deepest little corners of our lives. And I think I see it as a priority of mine to try and constantly challenge it, whether that's with friends or in through youth work. And we've now at the Youth Endowment Fund, we've now got a whole focus on violence against women and girls. That's like a recent development. So there's a whole sort of arm of the organisation that is now working towards trying to change policy in that space.
We need it. And that moment of holding your keys, that's something I feel like, it's just a normal thing. Like it's just weird, but that's a normal thing for every woman to kind of be like, when I get like, that's just because I don't know who's behind me. I don't feel safe. Like it's, these are conversations that like, and it's, I like that you said that, because obviously I was talking about men in jail too having these conversations, which actually the only reason I wanted to bring them up is because like a lot of times people are like, all these men are in jail and aggressive and they don't care and but I've had conversations like that where it is an eye-opener, but these are conversations that we should all be having at home, in our households, in our friends group. It's like any other conversation that you think is a touchy subject. Like if you don't have those conversations with your own friends, you might not know, your friend might not. Like I know for a fact, like I've spoken to friends who are like my male friends, and they're like, there's women in prison with babies? Like they don't, they're like, what do you mean? So where do they stay? And I'm like, in the mother and baby unit. And they don't understand this. They're like, but in the prison. Do you understand? So it's like, for me, everything that I'm understanding and learning more of, I have to tell people, because if you don't know about it, why are you going to be awake to it? Why are you going to want to do something different about it? Like, I've had to tell men like, so if you do a madness and your wife is pregnant and they think that she's part of this crime, she's going to jail. She's having a baby in the jail, and this is something that people need to be aware of, because again, we are all connected some way. Like in some way we're all connected. And if we're not taking responsibility for ourselves and others, like what are we leaving people to? And I feel like, anyway, I'm going to go into this because touching on the violence and going again, community-wise, like young people, I feel like something that doesn't get spoken about. So obviously I found out that November is like the mental health month for men. Like I had no idea what this was like, and thank God to shout out my producer Arthur. And we actually used it as a masculinity as one of our freestyle words on our show, because we wanted men and women to talk about the word masculinity. Amazing. And what it means.
What, this month?
Yeah, literally for November. So we was like, okay, it's November. We have to do, Shannon, like, let's do a freestyle word, and let's like get people writing. Let's get people thinking masculinity is the word. And what's been incredible is just hearing people talk about it's not unmasculine to actually help somebody or show emotions. Like, these are men talking about this, but we know in prison especially, there's like a high rate of like suicide, like especially in the men's states. And what, like for me, it's like, I know, okay, we get people to write bars and we get people to think about bars, but what is it that you think in regards to like suicide within the UK, like within male establishments? Like what do you think are some of the reasons that people, I guess the men are not talking and just committing suicide, but not talking about it? Like people don't know about men committing suicide in prisons.
So I'm not going to claim to be an expert on suicide, right? But I will say that one important thing that I have done that really opened my eyes to this as an issue was interviewing Marnes Malone.
Large up Marnes.
So I interviewed him over, he's obviously in prison. I interviewed him over, I think it was over a Zoom call, and then his PR was had him. It was like, I've interviewed people in prison before and it can get techie with like trying to do it. But anyway, but that doesn't downplay how...
Large up the PR team for that.
Yeah, and just the sort of but the fact that, that's possible, and the fact that, things like free flow, these things are possible because of technology. This is why technology can be bad and we need to control it, but it also has allowed these amazing things. We're having this conversation because it can be sent out right afterwards and people can access it. But what Marnes Malone, because I interviewed him about his single I Hate January. So the reason he hates January and the single is called that is because he lost one of his friends in January.
Yeah.
But also because he wanted to raise awareness for rates of suicide in prisons. And the stuff that he told me in that interview completely opened my eyes. One of the main things is I remember at one point in the conversation, which really challenged me, because I remember at the time being like, how am I going to manage? When you're writing a piece and you know you've got a certain word length and a rapper saying all this interesting stuff, it's difficult to know how you're going to fit it in.
Yeah.
But he basically was like, can I read something to you? And I was like, yeah, you go for it. If it's not too long, you can read it. And he was like, look, this guy I'm in prison with, he has written this piece of writing that he said, you have to read it. You have to read it out to the journalist. You have to read. And I was like, all right, go for it. And he read out this piece of writing that someone on his wing had written about suicide in prison. And I managed to get a bit of the piece, a paragraph from the piece in the Guardian piece. So it got printed in the Guardian, right? So I managed to keep my commitment. One of the things in that was talking about phone credit. So it was a quote from someone who'd done an investigation into rates of suicide, and one of the most consistent thing they found of those who had committed suicide was that they had no credit on their phone, which is so powerful, because I think it speaks to someone doesn't have the ability to reach out, even if, let's say, even if they can battle through the sort of sense of the pride and shame of asking for help.
Yeah.
Where especially, I can only imagine what that's like whilst you're incarcerated.
Asking for help, even just without prison, is a problem.
In my everyday life.
I'm still learning. I'm still learning to ask for more help. Do you know what I mean? But big problem.
Exactly. And even me, like now, just on a daily basis, like thinking of like, I've been thinking about this recently, like maybe 10, 15 years ago, I think I would have been much more open to calling up a mate and being like, yo, I need to talk about this thing. I actually think in many parts of my life now, as a man, so the default is I'll just crack on because I'm going to be okay. And I can only imagine, like you have to fight against that tendency, because you get socialized and taught to do that, right? And that's me. I try and work on myself, and even me, I feel that. But if you're in prison,
crazy.
If you're in prison, I can only imagine like the difficulty of that. To then add the thing of like, oh, you don't have the money even if you battle through that, I want to call someone, I can't because I've got no credit.
Yeah.
I think that's just one thing that I took from that interview that really taught me.
Phone credit in prison is expensive. It's so expensive. Like, and if you call somebody and say, for example, it goes to voicemail, that credit, they still charge you, like, and it's like, it's a lot that goes off. So a lot of times, and it's really sad to say this, because like, obviously I remember like making phone calls to my mom and my family, and like, I remember my mom ended up having to get a house phone, like a landline, because she was like, the mobile costs so much. So literally it would be that I would make sure I count the rings so that I know that before it gets to like, say, ring number 5, it's going to go, just hang up so I don't get charged. Do you know what I mean? But also there's the other side of that where my family is like upstairs and the phone's downstairs and everyone's running. Like, I know stories of my sisters like near enough breaking a leg because they tried to like, mum's got to be like, why didn't you answer the phone? Like, she's calling, do you know what I mean? So they knew that at that time when I was there, that one phone call, just to hear that, probably nothing to say, but just hearing your connection, your family, like I might not even, like I never told anybody I was feeling low in prison, because again, it's that if I tell somebody, then they're going to think I'm weak, and then like now they think I'm soft, and maybe people might bully me because I'm like crying or see me actually crying. Like this is another masculinity thing that we was talking about, like crying. Like as a woman, I'm not a man, but really and truly, it took me a long time to cry in public. Like me, cry in public. I'll probably end up fighting you because you saw me crying. Like, what do you mean? Now you see me soft in my emotional little state. Like, right. I would never cry. Whereas like when it comes to men, like especially crying, like to actually admit that this is something that's going on in my life, for some reason society's told them it's not okay to cry as a man. You know, like it's not masculine enough. You're crying. That's soft. Like men don't cry. Do you get what I mean? So I think in the prison system, exactly that. The fact that you don't have credit, you might not trust your cellmate, you might not have found an officer that, you know, you can eventually go and say, sir, miss, I'm not in the right state of mind. You have nobody. And so again, it goes into actually, I'm just going to just do this because that's... And do you know what's so crazy about the whole thing, suicide in prison? Like when I was in jail, I honestly... I felt suicidal in the beginning, but then after I got through my, I'm all right now, I can just crack on, like, like you do, I'm in jail now, I got to crack on. I realized that I was a bit more like, when I heard other people thinking that they're suicidal, I didn't understand it. Like, as if I hadn't experienced it. It's like I closed that chapter.
Okay.
Do you understand? I closed that chapter like, yeah, you were suicidal in the beginning, but now you're not. But it never left me. It never really, really left me, because in the back of my mind, I always had this feeling of, I could die in this place and something could happen to me. And what if it was me that kills myself? Because I didn't feel like there was anything else to live for. It never really left me. It was just coming out through writing. Instead of me actually going and knocking on a cellmate's door and saying, hey, can we talk? I'll just write it down. And again, not all of those things that I wrote were shared with anybody. They were just for me. And this is, again, why it goes into the writing and the creativity, because if I never found my creative voice and I never found that pen, I don't know if I would be here today. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if I would physically be doing the things I'm doing, meeting people like you. I'll probably be one of the women in the prisons that in and out, because I never got through the fact that I felt suicidal. Do you know what I mean? And it's crazy when you think about the guys in jail, because really and truly, this is something that, like you said, nobody wants to really ask for that help. And if you do want to ask for that help and you ain't got enough credit, you can't.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you just spoke to your own experience of writing, because I have the similar relationship with writing of like, it reminds me of a quote actually from Chex when we did our chat about free flow.
Yeah.
He said that when you write something down, you put it to bed. And obviously it's not as simple as that always, but there is a sense of like, if you write something down, you can have distance from it. Yeah. Because you can wake up the next morning and read it and be like, oh, let me process this. So that's why I think it's amazing that, I think we share this passion for writing for not just for ourselves and making sense of our own mental health and our own, existence. Yeah. But then we brought it into our practice in terms of our youth work and
passing it on.
But also like not just the writing, but then how the writing applies in a musical context, which goes back to the, me. So it's always banging on about solutions here. Yeah. You talk about suicide and in prison, or you talk about poor mental health in prison, or a lack of support for men or women in prison. Yeah. That's why I think things like free flow that you do, things like creative writing workshops, or like just allowing people to have the space to write stuff down, it can be and rap and express themselves and not censoring it, as long as you can provide the cushioning to not release it into the world and potentially criminalize them. That's why that stuff, it can be life-saving. Because I imagine that, so Martin Malone said, I don't even know if I'd be here if I didn't have music. And it's a good example of this, where you have so much trauma building up in places, it has to be let out. And I think writing music can be that medium.
100%. And the best quote, I think, like, first of all, shout out Chex. The best quote that I think that I have taken from Big Up Joelle Taylor, I've been stealing loads of things from her, but she said, some men cry with their fists. And if we really look at that properly, I've used it in poems and stuff, but that some men cry with their fists is literally, that's them. They're angry, they're crying, but they're not showing you they're crying, but they'll fight you and they'll, punch, knock man down, do what not, because they just need to get it out of their system, and that's the only way they know how to, because violence comes a lot easier for some people. It's easy to just punch a man in the face and move on. Whereas what we're talking about is like writing that down and kind of... the amount of things I've written down, and then gone back and gone, oh my God, you was angry, girl. Like, what's going on? Like, who wrote this? Like, do you know what I mean? So in a way, it's helpful in regards to that you can go back and reflect on it. But not everybody, especially the people, if we talk about people in prison, or even people... I would say even young people sitting down at home right now. That's
just people generally.
Just us as the human race. Not everybody will sit down and just say, I'm feeling like this, let me just write it. No, somebody will go to the pub and have a drink. And then, now you've had a couple of drinks. Now you're having a fight with somebody because guess what? You didn't let out what it is that you was running away from in the beginning. Do you know what I mean? So,
well, I think writing is often, we're often taught that writing is it's adjacent or is equated to doing schoolwork when we're younger.
Yes.
So, or doing admin now as an adult, right? Yeah. Boring admin that is stressful because you're paying the taxes or whatever. So that's why I think teaching types of creative expression like writing,
Yeah.
young, and giving young people access to these things and making them realize, actually, you can spend an hour. You know, this is how I feel. Like, the session, remember, we did it together in Oak Hill in Milton Keynes. Really, I'd say it's the most challenging environment I've worked in, I would say, because they're really young boys in there.
Really, really young.
As young as 12.
Yeah.
And so, really
Just
challenging.
so you know, guys, there was children as young as 12 in these particular prisons. So
Yeah,
so
secure training centres, they call them. But I remember going into that being like, if we get like a page of writing from each person that day, that's what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
But I left it being like, I got one sentence out of that guy, and I'm proud of that. I'm so proud of that. Because aside from the chaos that happened, like just having him write that one sentence, which was really powerful.
Yeah, literally.
And then also you get the one sentence, the one session, and then you come back the next week, you get a paragraph.
Yeah, this is it.
And then the next session, there's a whole song that is about the themes he built in that paragraph.
Yeah.
So it's building blocks of and making that space as like he wrote something down on a piece of paper and it was a positive thing, and it was with, I went in there, I was an author, I was like, look, I respect what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's make this positive. I think that much earlier on, before he's even got to prison, ideally.
Yeah.
In primary school, these things should be more available, not just, although I think English literature is important as well, not just that, right?
Not just that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because what you said there about like, you kind of associate the writing with school. A lot of times when we're doing prison sessions, like I won't, even with the fact that like I know creative writing can be therapeutic, but you don't want to tell a man like, we're going to sit down and we'll do some therapy together. They'll be like, what are you talking about? We'll be doing some kumbaya stuff. No, take that away. Like, but if you say we're going to sit down and write like bars, lyrics, they're like, but what kind of lyrics? You understand? And then at the end of that hour or whatever, they feel good. Like I've had people in Feltham go, but why can't you not come back like and do this as an educational day? Like, what? Like, can't you just teach a class once a week, twice a week even? We'll come, we'll do education. And for me, it's like, I would love to be able to do that. But again, the prison system itself hasn't broadened out enough to say, she needs to be coming in the prison ideally to do the work that she's doing because it's needed. Because let's not talk about it too much, but all the vetting and stuff, like that is a whole process.
Tough. It's tough.
It's tough to get that. And in order to do those classes on a 2-week, like twice a week, I would have to be vetted, and I'm not vetted. And it's like, I know that if the young people are saying that they will do this session, I know they will come to that session. And it's touch wood again. There's hasn't been anything crazy that's happened in the session where I feel like there's violence within the session. I feel like once they start writing, you put some beats on, everyone just kind of calms down.
Definitely.
Do you know what I mean? Because it's like this is the one time that they have to just firstly be with some of the people they haven't seen for a minute, but also be free for just that 1 hour.
Yeah.
It's weird because all they're doing is sitting down writing. And I've had a guy actually say to me, one young guy, he said like, you tricked me, And I'm like, how did I trick you? He said, you made me write for 2 hours. 2 hours. And now I'm going to come back after lunch and you're going to make me write more. I'm like, yeah, but you're going to have a good time though, right? Yeah, I'm going to have a good time. Do you know what I mean? But it's like...
Yeah, well, he's going to feel better after that.
Feel better. Because if you told them we're going to write for 2 hours, pen to paper,
they're
like, yeah, school, this and I got kicked out of school when I was this. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you're trying to force people to do classes, like in classroom kind of environments that got kicked out of school so young that they don't even... For them, that's why I got kicked out, because I didn't understand that. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, first and foremost, like, I can actually sit here and talk to you for, like, forever. Like, it's just working with you, doing these little chats. I feel like, again, more people need to have more conversations like this because it's just needed. But also have more conversations like this with people that might not necessarily know a lot about the stuff that we're talking about. Because sometimes we are talking to a lot of people that understand what we're talking about and know, like preaching to the choir. So, of course, here with Unchained Voices, we like to try and like bust some myths that people might think that they know about prison or the criminal justice system or lyrics or whatever. So is there anything that you want to like let the general public know? Like, what myth is it that for you personally that connects either to the criminal justice system or lyrics or violence within prison? What myth would you want the general public to know? Actually, that's all lies.
I think the first, there's two. The first thing is this idea that British society is getting more violent all the time. It's just not true. Like, all measures show over a zoomed out long period that we've got less violent. We've solved violence in many different spaces. And although it's flared up over the last 15, 20 years in lots of ways, a lot of that is to do with how it's reported on, how it's shown on social media, how we're constantly made aware of it. But actually rates of like, depending on how you measure it, like if you focus on knife crime, these are not zooming up. Instances of knife crime, instances of hospitalizations because of knife wounds are not going up.
Yeah.
They're sort of hovering as they have been since the late 2010s. So the myth that like everything's getting worse, I think that's really strong online right now, is just not true.
So that means that however this is being reported needs to change ideally, because a lot of the times the media is telling us, look, this has happened again and this happened again. And then it kind of looks like this is something that's up in society where people start to get scared of going to certain areas or...
Yeah, but also people are scrolling on their phones more and algorithms are driving our lives more, and that's giving us fearful content to doom scroll on. And so I think our brains are just, trying to make sense of more negative content, frankly.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think so many people in prison were criminalized before they did anything criminal. There's so many examples from across my journey as a youth worker, but also as a journalist, as a writer, interviewing people. We've got a guest on the Safe podcast, the one I host at my work, amazing young man who we've anonymously interviewed because of his journey in county lines to protect his identity. But his story is like so many others that I've spoken to, where neurodiversity, circumstances in his family home that he could not control, and then services that are treating him like he's made a conscious decision to harm someone or do something bad from the age of 12, 13. And the combination of those things, fast forward a few years, then it's inevitable that you end up with a criminal record. Yeah. It's inevitable that you end up in prison, unless you then have someone fighting your corner in the justice system, which not many young people benefit from.
No.
So the main thing is like, let's not criminalize teenagers. Let's try and understand what victimhood looks like. People have agency, so don't patronize them, but people are also victims of really difficult circumstances. And so assuming that they've made decisions that are different to ones that we would make in their shoes, I think is patronizing as well, and also wrong. I think we've got to lead with empathy and lead with the assumption that if someone who's still a teenager is in prison, then even if they've committed a really horrific crime, something has gone wrong in their journey. And I think that not automatically assuming they're a bad person and therefore trying to like meet them with more compassion is like really important.
I don't even have anything to add to that, because I just feel like that's literally what we see every day when we're talking to the young people that we work with, we meet. It's just they've already been criminalized, and then all of a sudden they're in the jailhouse, and it's like, in a lot of their minds it's like, well, actually I kind of knew I was going to end up here anyway because nobody cared to start with, so why would somebody care now that I'm in prison? So
exactly.
Okay, all right, well, I have had an incredible time. Thank you so much. Obviously I want people to make sure that they tune into this, but I feel like there's a lot more work that we're doing, and it needs to happen continuous. Like, these conversations need to happen in all places. Like, yes, social media is great, but let's use it for some more positive stuff. Again, it's like how I say about drill music. Positive drill, please, guys. And also, Free Flow is available only in prison. So if you're listening to this thinking, oh, what's this Free Flow thing? It's only available in prison. And going back on that phone number thing, our number is actually free, so they don't actually have to add it onto their PIN in prison. It's a free number, which if we're thinking about therapy and like getting that voice heard,
wow, yeah,
like it's a free number. They just call it up and they
don't need phone credit.
They don't need phone credit. They just pick up the phone and they spit their bars down the phone line. So I guess that's something that NPR is doing to kind of keep people connected to some kind of agency. So no, I just want to say thank you for coming here, talking with me, and just continue doing your amazing work, because I am super gassed to know you. So yeah.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Keep doing your work as well.
We'll be doing work together. So
indeed.
Thank you so much.
Unchained is a community interest company, which means that the work that we do in large part is funded by donations, whether that's grants, sponsorships, partnerships, or other kinds of charitable contributions.
The funding helps us manage artists, pay them for their time, travel, hire venues, making sure that each artist can have that moment to have a one-to-one with another artist that they might be a mentor to, but also helping us to continue doing the work we do whether that's going into prisons, working in the community, working in a Peru or a school. All the funding is needed in order for us to complete that work and make it as incredible and as supportive as it can be.
Please visit unchained.org.uk/donations and help us continue to do the work that we do. Thank you very much.